The building of ships in Essex is what distinguished this small New England community from others and made it so unique. Essex County, in the past, has been referred to by some as the most historic county in America. Beginning in 1624, when the first Europeans settled here, Essex County has provided history that has shaped the nation. The Salem witch trials and the formation of the U.S. Navy in Beverly are events that have had a lasting impact throughout the country. It's one of the few counties in America that has created a great number of craftsmen, patriots, and those of high intellect and ability. Essex County was one of the most productive industrial regions in the world, working in the textile, leather, and fishing industries. The town of Essex was originally part of Ipswich, and was referred to as Tobacco by the native Indians. The land was situated with dense forests and conveniently located on a river, and close to the ocean coastline. The settlers had quickly realized that the waters were abundant with fish, and soon after the coastal fishing industry had blossomed. Settlers first used canoes purchased from local Indians, or shallops, which were brought over from Europe. Shallops were considered small wooden crafts with one or two masts for use in coastal waters. Eventually these boats were loosely built in the barns of fishermen, which weren't ideal but were necessary in supporting the coastal fishing industry. The economy was increasingly dependent on the success of the fishing industry. Locally constructed shallops consisted of bows and sterns that were too high, and hulls that weren't deep enough, thus only making them useful for shallower waters such as tidal rivers and saltwater marshes. With the increased need of seaworthy boats, the shipbuilding industry in Essex began to flourish. In the beginning, Essex built its boats strictly for its own use. A common legend has it that the first boat built in Essex was by a man named Burnham in his house, and that it was necessary to tear out the end of the house before the vessel could be launched. In the year of 1668, there were reports in Ipswich town records that an acre of land was set aside in Tobacco exclusively for shipbuilding. It was a given for the people of Tobacco to construct boats with the rising fishing industry and the wealth of timber in the area. It was believed that the building of vessels in Tobacco was the main reason that so many sawmills were erected in the area. Once the shipbuilding industry was established, it continued to flourish because of the abundance of timber that was present. The history of shipbuilding in Tobacco, later named Essex, was an industry that evolved over time in both size and number of vessels built. The functionalities of the vessels gradually improved with each new model that was built. There was the Tobacco boats, dodge bodies, pinkies, and finally the schooners, which people are most familiar with. Schooners were by far the most efficient. They adapted the skill to sail in both shallow and rough coastal waters, and were able to carry a lot more cargo and men. These boats also required fewer crewsmen to sail the ship, and were able to travel at faster speeds, which made schooners more economically efficient. The reputation of Essex shipbuilders spread quickly, and before long the men were building boats for the fishermen of surrounding communities, the main one being Gloucester, Massachusetts. The majority of schooners built in Essex were headed towards the Gloucester fishing industry. By 1849, Essex had built over 15 shipyards that produced over 50 vessels a year. More than 4,000 wooden vessels had been launched from the banks of Essex River by 1937. The shipbuilding industry accounted for most of the revenue of the town, beginning from the days of its settlement as Tobacco Parish until the early part of the 20th century. Essex was recognized worldwide as North America's major producer of the American fishing schooner, the vessel that strengthened the fishing industry and changed maritime history. More two-masted wooden fishing schooners were built in Essex than in any other place in the world. This little country town was so devoted to the building of ships that it was said that 1 out of every 28 ships flying the American flag was built in Essex. However, by the 1930s, the demand for wooden vessels was no longer present. Essex did not adapt well to the transition from sail-powered wooden ships to engine-powered metal vessels. The factors contributing to the demise of shipbuilding in Essex were numerous. These included the cost-effectiveness and rapid production of steel vessels taking place in various shipyards across New England, the lack of demand for handcrafted wooden vessels, the struggle in successfully obtaining top-quality wood in adequate length, and lastly the lack of younger men skilled in wooden shipbuilding. The majority of the shipbuilding activity had disappeared by World War II. Once the primary industry in Essex, shipbuilding was now a thing of the past. Those with shipbuilding skills went over to nearby Ipswich to the Robinson shipyard, which had naval contracts for building steel vessels. Dana A. Story, youngest son of legendary Essex shipbuilder Arthur Dane Story, had ran the Story shipyard for many years and was one of the Essex men who made transition during the war. The shipbuilding industry of Essex, as it once was, is preserved and alive in the Essex Shipbuilding Museum. The museum is situated in the core of Essex, Massachusetts. The Essex Historical Society and Shipbuilding Museum purchased the site of the former Story shipyard in 1993. The building itself is neighboring the very land that was set aside in Tobacco in 1668 for specifically building ships. It was here that the world-famous schooners were built for over 300 years. Here you will learn about the building of the wooden vessels, be able to see and touch the actual tools used in building a schooner, and explore the other important aspects involved in the shipbuilding industry of Essex. The Evelina M. Goulart, originally built for Portuguese fishermen, sits in the grounds of the museum a few feet from where she was constructed in 1927. The museum's flagship, the Lewis H. Story, still sails today and is sometimes present in the nearby waters of the museum. Essex shipbuilder Harold Burnham was commissioned in 1998 by the Essex Historical Society and Shipbuilding Museum to construct this tobacco in honor of the town's leading maritime historian, Lewis H. Story. Today, there is still some history of shipbuilding in Essex alive, where close-by shipwrights continue to design, build, and repair classic wooden vessels. The nearby schoolhouse, built in 1835, houses the majority of the museum's collections and archives, and helps place the astonishing shipbuilding enterprise in the framework of a small New England village.